Hi, this is Jeff Curto, and welcome to episode number 94 of Camera Position, the podcast about the creative side of photography. How do I do that? How to is one of the big questions that I have been asked as an instructor in photography over the last, 28 years. How do I do that? And the how-to part of photography versus the what to do in photography is today's topic. So how do I do that versus what to do? And one of the things that I have always believed in a general way about photography is that the how-to, the mechanical, technical part of photography, is really a fairly simple thing to learn. Certainly aperture, shutter speed, ISO, focal length, depth of field, those kinds of things are really things that you can just learn very quickly, but it takes quite a long time to master those things, use them effectively. So one of the things that I've always tried to do with my students is try to teach them the difference between how to do something and what to do with it. What to do with it? How do I know when something works? How do I know when that's the right method to use? A sort of a tip that I always use at any time when I'm teaching Photoshop is the best way to do something in Photoshop is the one you remember, because there are so many ways to do everything in Photoshop. So the idea of which one I can remember how to do first is probably the most efficient way to do just about anything in Photoshop. But how to do something versus what to do. How do I understand the time when I can use a particular technique, a particular idea in photography? And I think the answer, and this probably won't come as a surprise to many of the longtime listeners to Camera Position, I think the answer is looking at photographs. Looking at your own photographs, obviously, and seeing what has worked and what has not worked, but also looking at the work of master photographers. And I think one of the great advantages of the internet is its ability to bring us terrific photography all the time. I mean, it's just at our fingertips. Masters of Photography is one of my favorite websites. It's not the most glamorous looking website, but boy, do they have a lot of great content up there from really important photographers. And certainly an awful lot of photography is available in a wide variety of other places. Photo District News or PDN, the Lenswork website, and now they have a terrific online subscription model to be able to access much of their content online. And I'll put links to those things in the cameraposition.com blog. And I'll put a couple of photographs that I've been working on where I'm looking at adjacency of tone and adjacency of color, both online on cameraposition.com and also in the Camera Position app. I had mentioned the app last time on the last podcast, and I've had a few emails about it. It will be coming to the Android store soon. Also notable is that Camera Position is now available at Stitcher. Stitcher.com, the podcast automatic downloadable phone and iPad app. I assume they have an Android app as well. So Stitcher.com, you can find Camera Position and update yourself in that way too. So looking at photographs, thinking about the way in which things do and do not work, trying to examine the techniques or ideas about, especially things like, in my mind, about value and color and how colors interact and how tones interact. The idea of trying to find the right combination of tones. And I think one of the big differences between really excellent photography and photography that sort of goes down to the second tier is that attention to detail of those kinds of things, that attention to thinking through the process of the way in which we do those kinds of ideas about changing very subtly sometimes the value or the color of something next to the value or color of an adjacent tone or an adjacent color. I often think about the great curmudgeon Fred Picker. Some of you out there listening may remember Fred Picker, a guy who ran a company called Zone 6 out of Newfane, Vermont, a photographer in his own right and a maker of photographic gizmos as well. And I always liked Picker referring to some tones in photographs as being homely tones. I thought that was a great description of the way in which photographic tone can sometimes work. Some tones are beautiful and lovely, and some tones are just homely. Not ugly, just just homely. So thanks again for listening, and thanks for coming back to Camera Position after my long hiatus. You may be surprised here that I actually have another one right here waiting after the first one that came back after Camera Position 93, and I also have 5 ideas now in the can, so we're back on track, and I'm really delighted to be back in front of the microphone, and thanks for all the encouraging emails and Twitter posts and so forth and so on. If you are not a friend of mine on Facebook or not following me on Twitter, I'll put links to those references in the cameraposition.com blog as well, and hope you'll follow me and friend me, and we'll get back to the business of thinking about photography together, talking about photography together. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Camera Position, the podcast about the creative side of photography.